Once upon a time, in a community town named Amaldo, there lived a boy named Amadi. He had a little brother whose name was Toby, whom he cherished and made sure had everything he wanted while they were growing up, even though Toby was a person who kept to himself. They didn't have much, but they were great farmers known in the village as they grow up. Years later, they both grew up to be men. Amadi got married to a woman named Oma. Shortly after that, Toby got married as well. A few months later, Oma, Amadi's wife, gave birth to a bouncing baby boy, Hakim, who they got to spend little time with for a few years until tragedy struck. Amadi and Toby had a serious argument that left both of them not talking to each other for months. One day, while coming back from the city, Amadi and Oma, after selling the crops they had harvested from their land, got into an accident. Amadi and his wife, Oma, died instantly, along with other people in the bus with them. The village was shocked at what happened when the news of the accident got out, and little Hakim, barely 4 years old, didn't know what was happening. After the grief, burial, and all that, Toby decided to take little Hakim in. Toby had 2 sons as well, Bruno, just a year old, and Aku, 3 years of age, almost the same age as Hakim. Hakim was too little to understand that he had lost his parents because he never knew them that well. Toby took care of him just as his late brother did for him when they were little. Hakim grew up seeing Toby as his father and Essie, Toby's wife, as his mother too. He also saw Bruno and Aku as his 2 little brothers. They played together, went to the stream together, and did things together. For years, they grew into teenage boys. Aku was always the stubborn and hot-headed one who always caused trouble, always trying to pick a fight with Hakim, knowing that Hakim wasn't actually his brother, but adopted. Aku lived with the hatred of Hakim in his mind, yet Hakim always tried to make him happy. 13 years later, Hakim, Aku, and Bruno grew up to be adults and great farmers as they continued the family business. Toby saw how far his children had grown and was happy. Hakim's dream was to study and become an educated farmer in that field. He wanted to have his own big plantation, study in the city, and come back to his community to provide job opportunities for people in the village through his plantation. Hakim had always had this grace and lucky charm that followed his father. He excelled in every single thing he laid his hands on. In a short while, Hakim left for the city. He studied agricultural courses in an adult college while also training. A few years later, Hakim was done. He outshined and performed well in his education. He came back after a few years in the city. Mr. Toby gave him a big land that was meant for him and his father had left for him. He decided to work to build the land to perfection. Toby was very proud of what he was becoming. Aku was also a great farmer who made his father's land great once again. Bruno had no interest in farming. He always wanted to study just like Hakim. He wanted to be a businessman who dealt in fabrics and clothing, which he did. As Hakim was undergoing his training, Bruno was too, studying, learning, and making clothes. After some months of reshaping the farmland, Hakim employed people to come work for him. A few years later, Hakim became the most famous and the most influential man in Amaldo. He owned a lot of land and plantations, exporting his crops to many cities. People and buyers traveled from far places to buy from him. His crops were all healthy and in good shape. Aku, on the other hand, barely kept up with his father's land as Toby was too old to manage his farm. But seeing the way Hakim turned out made him jealous. Aku had always been the most jealous one, but he always pretended to be different. He envied Hakim's wealth and the power he controlled. Hakim never minded. He always told Aku a lot of things he shouldn't have. He took him like his own brother, giving him as much care and love as he could. Aku smiled like everything was all right, but deep inside he was burning with rage, asking himself, why should Hakim be better than me, a low orphan boy? All the care Hakim had shown him wasn't enough because he saw Hakim as a rival. A few months later, Hakim got married to a beautiful woman named Emily. Toby died of a heart attack after the traditional marriage of his son Aku, who also got married. Toby had always loved all his sons equally, Hakim included, since he felt that it was his fault his brother died. Because of that, he had the opportunity to make it up to Hakim before he passed on. His only wish was for them to get along and be in good terms, but Aku was not in the business of that. After the burial, life continued as Hakim grew in wisdom and wealth. Aku, on the other hand, struggled to keep up with Hakim's level, but wasn't getting there. One night, as he lay in his bed, a dark thought crept into his mind. Why should he have everything? Aku whispered to himself. He was consumed with anger, seeing people praise and worship Hakim like he was some god. In an act of frustration and wickedness, he remembered the stories of a powerful old man who lived deep in the forest. It was said that this man could cast spells and grant wishes for a price. Aku didn't care about the cost. He was willing to do anything to make sure Hakim never succeeded. One early morning, before the sun rose, Aku left the hut and made his way into the forest. The trees were thick, their branches blocking out the sky. Strange noises surrounded him, the hoot of an owl, the rustle of the leaves, the distant growl of an animal. But Aku pressed on, determined to find the old man. After hours of walking, he finally saw a small hut made of sticks and leaves. Smoke curled out of the chimney, and a strange smell filled the air. Aku's heart raced as he stepped closer to the old man sitting outside. The old man seemed to see right through Aku. "What brings you here, child?" the old man asked in a voice that was both gentle and sharp. Aku hesitated for a moment, but then he said, "I want someone gone. I want to take my adopted brother's place because he doesn't deserve that position." The old man raised an eyebrow. "And who are you to decide someone's fate? This is a dark wish," he said. "Are you ready for the consequences?" "Yes," Aku said without hesitation. "I'll do whatever it takes." The old man smiled, showing his crooked teeth. He reached into his hut and brought out a small bottle filled with a red liquid. "This is for your brother," he said. "Put this in his drink. He will fall into a sickness that will render him useless. His fame and wealth, no one will ever think about him anymore." "And I hope this will not kill him?" Aku asked in excitement. The old man smiled. "He will live, but you know that if anybody finds out what you did, the consequences of your action are reversed. The sickness will come for you." Back in the village, his hands trembled as he hid the bottle of liquid in his bag. He waited for the right moment, and a few days later, he came to visit Hakim. Hakim was so happy to see Aku, as it had been a while since their father, Toby, died. With a pretending smile on his face, Aku acted as if he had come to see his brother with a good heart. "Hey, Aku, it's been a long time, brother. I missed having you around after Bruno left for the city," Hakim said warmly. "So, how have you been doing? Hope you are all right," he asked with a concerned expression. "Of course, brother. I am okay. Just putting myself together after father passed away," Aku replied. "I am so sorry, Aku. He was also my hero and my father too, and I understand how you feel. If there is any way I can be of help, I will be glad to help, brother," Hakim said sincerely. After a long, widening conversation, Hakim brought out a drink so they could relax while he gave Aku advice and ideas on how to grow his farmland. Aku sat patiently, listening to Hakim and waiting for the right moment to strike. After a few minutes, Hakim was called outside. Aku had his chance. Without remorse or hesitation, he poured the red liquid into Hakim's glass cup, waiting for him to return and drink it. Later, Hakim came back to the living room and sat with Aku, who pretended to smile and listen as if he cared. In the middle of their conversation, Hakim took his cup and drank the wine. That was it. The deal was done. Aku smiled like he had accomplished his mission. As the day ended, Aku left Hakim's house. They bid farewell to each other after Hakim had promised to introduce him to most of his buyers. A week later, Hakim started feeling dizzy, weak, and experiencing headaches and loss of appetite. He couldn't do much of anything. He went to some herbalists to mix some medicine for him, but none of them could heal him. Out of all the herbalists he had met, none could explain what was happening to Hakim. Waking up one morning was a disaster for Hakim. He saw himself slimming down more and more. His wife, Emily, was worried about him. "Honey, I am really worried about your health. You are not looking good at all," Emily said, feeling deeply concerned. But Hakim couldn't tell what was really happening to him. Days passed, and Hakim was losing himself, his health, his fortune, and his customers. Meanwhile, it was the beginning of Aku's fortune. Most of Hakim's customers had turned to Aku, leading Hakim to a breaking point. Hakim's sickness worsened to the extent that he couldn't go outside. He had become so skinny that he lost all his flesh. Everything he had built was lost, and the villagers started suspecting him of making unclean money. Rumors spread that maybe karma had come for him. Hakim was in pain as he sat in the corner of his bed, his name dragged through the mud in the village for being an occultist. Emily, his wife, came and sat beside him. "My husband, don't listen to what people are saying about you. I myself know that you are not that kind of person," Emily encouraged him. Hakim, in tears, said, "After all I have done for this community, they forgot it all in just a week. Why are the gods allowing this curse to fall upon me?" he lamented. Emily was concerned, but over the years she had observed that Aku never liked Hakim. In fact, he despised him because Hakim was better than him. She knew that no matter what she told Hakim about Aku, he wouldn't believe her. But she decided to give it a try. "My husband, I don't think Aku's hands are clean. Please, just for once, observe this. Since you fell sick, he has never shown up to see you or check on you. I know he is your brother, and I know you will defend him, but for a second, just observe this. Aku must have a hand in what is really wrong with you," Emily said, laying a serious but well-observed accusation. "It's not possible for Aku, my brother, to do such a thing to me." "It can't be," Hakim said, eyes widening in confusion. But in his mind he thought to himself, "Could my wife actually be right about this? No, Aku can't do this to me." After the conversation with his wife, Hakim lay awake all night, worried and deep in thought about her statement. He knew in his mind that Aku had never cared for him in any way. Instead, he saw him as just a person, not a brother. Come to think of it, Aku had started doing well ever since his sickness began. One evening, he decided to go to Aku's house to see him in his condition. He met Essie, Aku's mother, his adopted mother. They exchanged greetings and had a little conversation. Essie was sad to see what had happened to Hakim and wished him well. Essie was already so old that she could barely see clearly. An hour later, Aku came back and met with Hakim. Shockingly, he pretended to be happy to see him. Both sat in the living room of their house. "Aku, my brother, I have been very sick for over a month now, and you never bothered to come and see me," Hakim said in a calm but hurtful tone. "I am so sorry. I have been busy here and there, running businesses, something you have experience with. I was even planning to come see you tomorrow," Aku replied, hiding his cruel expression. Hakim, for the first time, knew that Aku never had any intention of visiting him, but he still found it difficult to believe that Aku would do this to him. At this point, Hakim didn't know what else to believe. "Aku, what have I ever done to you? I gave you all my business contacts to help you boost your farming business, and you used them against me. I thought we were brothers," Hakim said, hurt. Aku, unable to hold the pretense any longer, replied, "How does it feel to live in the shadow of another person, my so-called brother? Enough of the pretense. You think you are better than me? And now, who's better?" Aku said with pride and anger, pointing his hand at Hakim. "This is unlike you, Aku," Hakim said. "Well, maybe what happened to you happened for a reason. So, farewell, brother," Aku said and left Hakim in the living room. With a heart full of sorrow and hurt, Hakim went back home. He could never believe that Aku hated him so much for simply existing, even though he had been open to him. Hakim, throughout the night, was in pain as tears rolled down his eyes. For the past few weeks, Hakim had been getting worse and worse in his sickness, and no cure was found to save him. Emily, his wife, was really worried about her husband. She tried everything she could, but nothing worked. Until one day, she met a medicine woman who was both spiritual and a herbalist, and she was willing to help Emily. After examining Hakim, who was lying on the bed, the medicine woman knew something was wrong. She turned to Emily. "Your husband was poisoned," the medicine woman said. Emily was shocked at how her husband could have been poisoned. "But can you heal him? Please, I will do anything," Emily pleaded. "What has been done to your husband is almost irreversible because it is spiritual. But the only way I can reverse it won't be an easy process. However, it is possible," the medicine woman said. After thoroughly examining Hakim's sickness, she found out that the poison was made by a powerful witch doctor, an old man who lived deep in the forest, away from the village. The medicine woman embarked on a journey to meet him. She stepped into the hut of the old man and sat in front of him. The old man gazed at her. "What do you seek, medicine woman?" the old man asked. I seek for you to release Hakim, my patient, from the curse which you laid on him, the medicine woman bargained. What has been done is already done and cannot be undone, he said. Done by you, or done by the gods? That is not the rule of the gods, but the rule which men like you live to establish. And I will not leave your hut until you give me what I came here for. The antidote to cure an innocent man, the medicine woman insisted. She drove a hard bargain. The old man, seeing her determination, made an antidote and gave it to her. She went back and gave it to Hakim. He drank it, and instantly he was healed. Hakim was happy and thankful to be alive, and so was his wife. The medicine woman's work was done, and she left. A few days later, Aku fell sick, the same sickness that had befallen Hakim. The old man had warned him that there would be unforeseen consequences to his actions, but he never listened. Hakim was surprised that Aku, whom he took as his blood brother, would do such a thing to him. This is why it is not good to share your good news with anyone, even those closest to you. With time, people saw Aku for what he really was. His actions and greed led to the death of his mother, Essie. When Bruno, his younger brother, came back and saw what had happened, he was shocked. Aku lived the remainder of his life in isolation until death came for him. Hakim recovered everything that was taken away from him. Bruno went back to the city to continue his business after the burial of his mother and brother. Not everyone can be trusted with your secrets or affairs. Remember, the walls have ears, and your enemies might be someone from your household. Dear viewers, what do you think about this story? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and share it with friends. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks, and see you in the next video. Bye.